Listen to me carefully, because what I am about to say is not meant for the distracted, the casual, or the half-awake soul. This message is for the ones who have cried out to God in the silence of the night and wondered why their heart feels untouched by romance, why companionship seems distant, why love stories pass by them like strangers. This is for the chosen ones who feel isolated, not because they are unwanted, but because God has set them apart. If you have ever asked God, why am I alone while others are paired? Then stay with me, because what you call isolation, God calls preparation, and what you interpret as rejection is often divine protection working quietly behind the scenes. There is a holy misunderstanding in this world that says loneliness is a curse and romantic connection is proof of blessing. But God has never measured destiny by relationship status. God has always measured destiny by obedience, by surrender, by capacity, and by assignment. When God selects a soul for uncommon purpose, He often removes common distractions. That is why the chosen ones experience seasons where romantic connection feels absent, delayed, or even impossible. It is not because you lack worth. It is because God refuses to let your emotional life sabotage your spiritual mandate. You must understand something deeply and without confusion. Isolation is not abandonment. Isolation is alignment. God isolates what He intends to elevate. God separates what He intends to strengthen. God withdraws you from emotional dependency because He wants to build spiritual authority within you. Many people are desperate for companionship because they have never learned to stand in the presence of God without leaning on another human for identity, validation, or comfort. But the chosen ones are trained differently. You are taught to lean on God first, to hear God clearly, and to move with God confidently, even when no one else is walking beside you. There are people who fall in love easily, and there are people who are called deeply. The ones who fall easily often attach quickly, emotionally, and without discernment. But the ones who are called deeply are guarded carefully by God. God watches who approaches you, who desires you, who speaks into your life, because He knows that emotional access is spiritual access. When God withholds romantic connection, He is often protecting you from bonds that would drain your energy, dilute your focus, or derail your assignment. Some of you have wondered why every potential relationship seems to fade, why attraction never fully develops, or why timing always collapses. You must stop interpreting that as failure. God has been closing doors you were not meant to walk through. God has been blocking attachments that would have cost you clarity. God has been saving you from emotional entanglements that would have confused your calling. What feels like delay is discernment operating on your behalf. Chosen ones are isolated not because they are undesirable, but because they are dangerous to the wrong connections. Your presence shifts atmospheres. Your spirit carries weight. Your discernment exposes masks. Many people are drawn to you for comfort, for healing, for attention, but very few are equipped to walk beside you without becoming dependent on you or threatened by you. God knows this. That is why He often keeps you alone until your strength no longer seeks approval and your heart no longer confuses attention with assignment. There is a season where God teaches you to love Him without substitutes. Romantic desire is powerful, and emotional bonding can become a form of worship when it replaces devotion to God. So God strips away the distractions and asks you to sit with Him in the quiet, to confront your fears, to heal your wounds, to understand your patterns, and to break cycles that have run through generations before you. Many people enter relationships to escape themselves. Chosen ones are forced to meet themselves in the presence of God. Isolation refines your voice. Silence sharpens your hearing. Loneliness deepens your prayer life. When there is no romantic partner to absorb your emotional overflow, you pour it into God. And in that pouring, something sacred happens. Your faith matures, your discernment strengthens, your spirit becomes anchored. God is not interested in giving you a relationship that replaces Him. God is interested in shaping you into someone who can carry love without losing obedience. You must stop envying the relationships you see around you. Many of those connections are built on compromise, fear of being alone, or emotional convenience. God has spared you from unions that look beautiful on the outside, but are empty on the inside. God has spared you from becoming someone you would not recognize just to be loved by someone who could not sustain you. When God keeps you isolated, He is preserving your authenticity. There is also a deeper truth that many are afraid to speak. Chosen ones intimidate casual love. You are not designed for surface level affection. You do not bond lightly. You do not love carelessly. Your heart carries depth, intention, and intensity. That level of presence requires maturity to match it. God will not rush you into the arms of someone who would mishandle what He carefully formed. That is why the waiting feels heavy, but the purpose is holy. Some of you have felt invisible in social spaces, overlooked in romantic settings, or misunderstood when you express your values. That invisibility is not weakness, it is filtering. God is removing those who cannot see beyond the surface. God is protecting you from being chosen for the wrong reasons. When the right alignment appears, it will not be forced, rushed, or confusing. Until then, God is teaching you to be whole without applause and content without attachment. You are learning sovereignty of spirit. You are learning how to sit alone without collapsing emotionally. You are learning how to hear God's voice without external confirmation. You are learning how to be fulfilled without being pursued. This is not punishment. This is power being installed within you. People who cannot be alone are easily controlled. People who cannot sit in silence are easily manipulated. God is making you unshakable. Romantic isolation also reveals your true motives. It exposes whether you desire connection to share love or to fill emptiness. God will not bless a relationship born from lack. God blesses relationships born from fullness. Until you know who you are without someone choosing you, you are not ready to choose wisely. That is why God removes the noise and leaves you face to face with your own soul. There is a spiritual authority that only solitude can produce. When you walk alone with God long enough, you stop begging for attention. You stop chasing affection. You stop performing for love. You become grounded. And when you are grounded, you attract alignment instead of attachment. God is not preparing you for romance alone. He is preparing you for impact, for leadership, for influence, for a life that requires clarity and strength. Many of the chosen ones carry generational assignments. Your life is not just about personal happiness. It is about breaking patterns, healing bloodlines, and establishing new standards. That level of responsibility requires a season of isolation, where God rewires your thinking and purifies your desires. Romantic distraction at the wrong time could delay everything God intends to do through you. You must trust the wisdom of God's timing. God sees what you cannot see. God knows who is compatible with your future, not just your feelings. God knows who would support your calling and who would resent it. God knows who would walk with you when obedience becomes costly. Until that alignment exists, God may keep you alone, not empty, but full of Him. Some of you are afraid that isolation means you will always be alone. That fear is not from God. God does not create voids without intention. God does not prepare hearts without purpose. God does not refine desires without fulfillment. But fulfillment comes in order, not haste. When God brings connection into your life, it will complement your devotion, not compete with it. Right now, God is strengthening your inner life. He is teaching you to sit with discomfort without compromise. He is teaching you to desire connection without desperation. He is teaching you to trust Him without timelines. This season is shaping your emotional discipline, your spiritual stamina, and your discernment. These are not qualities developed in constant companionship. They are forged in solitude. Chosen ones are isolated because they are being taught to love differently. Not from need, not from fear, not from lack, but from overflow. When the time comes, you will not cling, chase, or beg. You will choose. And you will choose from wisdom, not wounds. God is patient because the outcome matters more than the speed. If you are isolated without romantic connection, do not curse the season. Consecrate it. Do not numb the longing. Understand it. Do not rush God. Listen to Him. There is something sacred happening in the quiet of your life. God is building a foundation that will not collapse under emotional pressure. God is shaping a heart that can love without losing purpose. God is preparing you to stand fully, whether someone stands beside you or not. And as you continue walking with God through this season, you will notice something changing within you. Your confidence will no longer depend on attention. Your peace will no longer depend on companionship. Your joy will no longer depend on validation. You will realize that you were never alone. You were being led, strengthened, and positioned step by step, moment by moment, into a depth of alignment that few ever reach, where the presence of God becomes louder than the absence of romance, and your spirit stands steady, awake, and ready for what has been quietly forming all along. There is another layer to this isolation that must be understood, because God is never random, never careless, and never silent without reason. When God withholds romantic connection, He is not just shaping your heart, He is retraining your vision. Many people see love through emotion alone, but God teaches the chosen ones to see through discernment. You are learning to recognize energy, intention, and alignment before attraction. You are learning that chemistry without character is chaos, and affection without obedience is a trap. God is elevating your standards not to make you lonely, but to make you wise. This season strips illusions. It exposes the myths you were taught about love being why. Our completion. God never designed another human to complete you. God designed Himself to be your source. When you understand this, desperation dissolves. You stop asking, why doesn't anyone choose me? And you begin asking, God, who should I choose when the time comes? That shift changes everything. God isolates you, so you stop seeking to be selected and start preparing to select with clarity. There are spiritual battles you would have lost if you were emotionally entangled. There are decisions you would have compromised if you were trying to please someone instead of obeying God. There are paths you would have taken just to avoid being alone. God saw all of it, and because your life carries weight beyond your comfort, He intervened by removing distraction. Isolation became your shield. Silence became your covering. Waiting became your protection. Some of you are walking through this season with quiet strength but deep questions. You wonder if something is wrong with you. You wonder if you missed your moment. You wonder if God forgot your desire. Hear this clearly. God does not forget what He created. Desire placed by God is not ignored by God. But desire must be governed, not indulged. God matures what He intends to bless. Immature desires attract unstable connections. Mature desires attract alignment. Chosen ones are often misunderstood in relational spaces because they carry an intensity that others cannot explain. You feel deeply, you think deeply, you sense deeply. Casual connection drains you instead of fulfilling you. God knows that placing you in shallow waters would suffocate your spirit, so He keeps you in deeper places, even if that depth feels lonely at times. Depth always feels isolating to those who are not called to swim there. This isolation also protects your voice. Many people lose their clarity once romance enters their life. They soften convictions, dilute boundaries, and silence truths to maintain comfort. God is teaching you to speak truth without fear of losing affection. He is teaching you to stand firm even when no one is applauding. This builds a spine in your spirit when you eventually connect with another. It will not cost you your voice because God already taught you how to keep it. There is a refining of identity happening. Without romantic affirmation, you are forced to answer the question, who am I, when no one is choosing me? God wants that answer rooted in Him, not in attention. If your sense of worth can be shaken by solitude, it would have been shattered by the wrong relationship. So God strengthens you first. He makes you unmovable before He makes you visible. You are also being trained in patience, a discipline few want, but all who lead must have. Love rushed is love broken. God does not rush what He intends to last. While others chase connection, you are learning restraint. While others compromise, you are learning self-control. These qualities will serve you far beyond romance. They will anchor your entire life. There is something sacred about learning to sit with longing without letting it control you. That is emotional mastery. God is teaching you that feelings are real but not rulers. When romance finally enters your life, it will not consume you because God already taught you balance. You will not abandon purpose for passion. You will not silence God's voice for emotional noise. You will walk steadily, not anxiously. This season is also breaking generational patterns. Many before you may have entered relationships out of fear, pressure, or tradition. God chose you to interrupt that cycle. Isolation is often the cost of being the first to do something differently. You are rewriting standards. You are redefining what love looks like when God is at the center. That kind of transformation is never comfortable, but it is always purposeful. Understand this, isolation does not mean inactivity. God is working intensely while it looks quiet externally. He is healing wounds you did not know were still open. He is dissolving attachments you thought re-normal. He is teaching you to recognize peace instead of excitement as confirmation. These internal shifts are invisible to others, but they are monumental in the spiritual realm. There will come a moment when you realize the waiting was not empty time, it was investment time. Every prayer, every tear, every night you chose faith over frustration was building something unshakable. When connection comes, it will meet a version of you that is whole, aware, and anchored. Not a fragmented soul seeking rescue, but a steady spirit ready to walk in unity. Until that moment, do not shrink yourself to fit spaces God never assigned you to. Do not lower your values to escape loneliness. Do not interpret isolation as rejection. God is not withholding love, He is preserving it. He is protecting you from being loved incorrectly. He is guarding your heart until it can be met with wisdom, not impulse. And even now, while you walk alone, you are not empty. You are accompanied by the presence of God, guided by His wisdom, strengthened by His timing. This season is teaching you that even if romance is absent, purpose is present. Even if companionship is delayed, calling is active. Even if affection is quiet, God's hand is loud over your life. You are becoming someone who does not collapse when alone, someone who does not compromise when waiting, someone who does not confuse desire with destiny. That transformation is rare. That refinement is costly. That path is narrow. But those who walk it emerge with clarity, authority, and peace that cannot be shaken by circumstance. There is also a hidden strength God is cultivating in you through this season. The ability to carry desire without being ruled by it. Desire is not weakness. Unmanaged desire is. God is teaching you discipline at the level of the heart, where choices are formed long before actions appear. When you learn to go your inner world, you become someone who cannot be easily manipulated by flattery, temptation, or emotional pressure. That mastery will protect you not only in love, but in every area of your life where decisions carry weight. Many people collapse under the pressure of intimacy because they never learned self-leadership. They expect another human to regulate their emotions, soothe their anxieties, and stabilize their identity. God refuses to place that burden on another person in your life. He's teaching you to stand upright on your own spiritual legs. This is why the chosen ones are trained in solitude first. Leadership begins with self-governance, and self-governance is forged when no one else is there to lean on. There is a consecration happening that few recognize. You are being set apart emotionally so your spirit can remain sharp. Romance, when entered prematurely, can dull spiritual sensitivity. It can blur judgment and soften resolve. God knows when affection would become interference, so He removes it until your obedience becomes stronger than your longing. This is not denial, it is refinement. God is purifying your intentions so that when you love cleanly without hidden agendas or unresolved hunger. You are also being trained to recognize the difference between attention and alignment. Attention is loud but temporary. Alignment is quiet but enduring. God is teaching you to value what lasts over what excites. That lesson cannot be taught in constant companionship. It is learned when you choose patience over impulse and trust over urgency. In that choice, your spirit grows steady and your discernment becomes precise. This season teaches you how to hear God above your emotions. Feelings rise and fall, but truth remains. When you are isolated, there is no one to echo your thoughts back to you, no one to distract you from the inner voice that convicts, corrects, and guides. God uses this space to recalibrate your inner compass. You begin to recognize peace as guidance and unrest as warning. That sensitivity will guard your future relationships from chaos. Understand this clearly. God is not training you to be alone forever. He is training you to never lose yourself again. Many people disappear into relationships. Their identity becomes blurred, their purpose postponed, their obedience compromised. God will not allow that to happen to you. He would rather let you feel the ache of waiting than the devastation of losing your direction. That is how seriously God takes your calling. There is also a strengthening of faith that happens when prayers seem unanswered. When you continue trusting God without visible fulfillment, your faith becomes resilient, not transactional. You stop believing only when you receive and start believing because God is faithful. That level of trust is rare. God entrusts greater responsibility to those who can wait without resentment and hope without evidence. You are learning how to love God for who He is, not for what He gives. That devotion purifies the heart. It removes entitlement and replaces it with reverence. When love finally enters your life, it will not be idolized, because God already holds the highest place in your heart. That order is essential. Anything placed above God eventually collapses. God is protecting you from that collapse. There will be moments when the silence feels heavy, when the absence feels louder than any presence. In those moments, God is inviting you deeper, not pushing you away. He is drawing you into a level of intimacy with Him that most people never reach, because they fill every quiet space with noise. You are learning to sit still, to listen, to trust. That stillness will become a well of wisdom you can draw from for the rest of your life. Isolation is also sharpening your boundaries. You are becoming clear about what you will not tolerate, what you will not compromise, and what you will not sacrifice. Clarity is expensive. It costs you options. It costs you convenience. It costs you temporary comfort. But it saves you from long-term regret. God values your future more than your present comfort, and He is shaping your choices accordingly. There is a maturity forming that cannot be rushed. You are becoming someone who does not confuse urgency with destiny. You are learning to wait for confirmation instead of chasing opportunity. That patience will prevent many errors. God does not reveal everything at once. He reveals in sequence. Your role is not to rush the process, but to remain faithful within it. As you continue to walk this path, you will notice a quiet confidence rising within you. Not arrogance, not pride, but assurance. You will stop explaining yourself. You will stop justifying your season. You will stop comparing your path to others. You will understand that God writes different stories for different assignments, and yours requires depth, not speed. This is the mark of the chosen ones. They are willing to endure misunderstanding to fulfill purpose. They accept isolation when it is commanded by wisdom. They trust God even when the heart longs for more. That trust is never wasted. God sees every act of restraint, every moment of obedience. Every night you chose faith over frustration. None of it is lost. Remain steady, remain open, remain anchored. This season is not empty, it is sacred. What God is forming in you now will allow you to love without fear, lead without compromise, and walk with strength, regardless of who walks beside you. The silence is shaping you. The waiting is preparing you. And the hand of God is guiding every step. Even when the path feels solitary, even when the heart feels quiet, even when the future has not yet revealed its shape, there is a revelation God gives only to those who walk long enough without leaning on another heart. And that revelation is this: fulfillment is not found, it is formed. God is shaping something inside you that no relationship could have produced. When you are stripped of romantic reassurance, you are forced to confront truth without filters. You cannot hide behind affection. You cannot numb uncertainty with companionship. You stand exposed before God, and in that exposure, He rebuilds you with integrity. Many people believe love will heal what only God can restore. They carry wounds into relationships and expect another human to do divine work. God refuses to allow you to repeat that cycle. He isolates you so the healing happens at the root, not the surface. He does not want patch wounds. He wants transformed hearts. When you are healed by God, you do not bleed on those who come close to you later. There is also a spiritual sharpening of intuition happening. When romantic noise is removed, your inner awareness becomes clearer. You begin to sense when something is off, when words and actions do not align, when intentions are impure. This sensitivity is dangerous to the wrong people, which is another reason God keeps you hidden. You are not meant to be easily accessed. You are meant to be rightly aligned. God is also teaching you the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the absence of people. Solitude is the presence of God. When you learn to dwell in solitude, you realize you are never truly alone. You discover strength in stillness. You find peace in prayer. You gain perspective that cannot be accessed in constant emotional exchange. Solitude becomes a sanctuary instead of a prison. There is a maturity forming in how you interpret silence. Silence no longer feels like reject. Ion, it feels like instruction. When God quiets your surroundings, He is amplifying His direction. He speaks most clearly when distractions are minimal. You are learning to read the subtle movements of God, the gentle warnings, the quiet confirmations. That level of awareness will guide your future with precision. You are also being taught how to wait without bitterness. That is a rare virtue. Many wait, but they grow resentful. Many endure, but they harden. God is teaching you to remain soft without becoming weak, hopeful without becoming impatient, expectant without becoming entitled. That balance is powerful. It keeps your heart open while your spirit stays guarded. This season is also redefining success for you. While others measure progress by relationship milestones, you are learning to measure growth by obedience, clarity, and peace. You begin to value alignment over appearance. You stop rushing to look fulfilled and start focusing on being anchored. God is rewiring your priorities so your future choices are guided by wisdom, not pressure. There will come moments when you feel tempted to settle, not because someone is right, but because waiting feels heavy. In those moments, God is watching your restraint. He is observing whether you trust His vision more than your discomfort. Every time you choose patience, you are declaring that God's plan matters more than temporary relief. That declaration strengthens your spiritual authority. You are becoming someone who does not fear being alone, and that freedom is rare. Fear of solitude drives people into unhealthy bonds. Freedom from that fear allows you to choose with clarity. When you are no longer afraid of isolation, you are no longer vulnerable to manipulation. God is removing that vulnerability from you piece by piece. This isolation is also preparing you for responsibility. Love is not just emotion, it is stewardship. It requires discipline, wisdom, and accountability. God prepares His servants before He entrusts them with responsibility. If you cannot manage your heart alone, you would struggle to manage it with another. God trains you privately so you can walk wisely publicly. You may not realize it yet, but this season is building endurance. You are learning how to remain faithful without immediate reward. That endurance will sustain you when life becomes demanding, when decisions are complex, when obedience requires sacrifice. God is not only preparing you for companionship, He is preparing you for a life that will require strength beyond emotion. There is also a deep humility being formed. Without constant affirmation, you learn to serve without recognition, to grow without applause, to trust without proof. That humility keeps you grounded. It keeps your heart teachable. It keeps you dependent on God instead of attention. God values this posture deeply. As time passes, you will notice your prayers changing. They will become less about timing and more about alignment. Less about asking and more about listening. Less about longing and more about trust. That shift signals maturity. It shows that your faith is no longer driven by what you want, but by who God is. Do not underestimate what is happening in this quiet season. What feels slow is actually precise. What feels empty is actually full of preparation. What feels delayed is actually protected. God is intentional with every pause, every closed door, every unanswered desire. Nothing is wasted. Remain vigilant, remain surrendered, remain faithful. This isolation is not your enemy, it is your training ground. When the next season opens, you will step into it with clarity, not confusion, with strength, not need, with peace, not pressure. God is shaping you into someone who can love deeply without losing direction, and walk in connection without losing devotion. Even now, as you walk without romantic attachment, you are carrying something sacred. Your life is being aligned with purpose, your heart with wisdom, your spirit with truth. God is near, God is active, God is guiding. And every step you take in obedience during this season is positioning you for a future that will not break you, but honor the work God has done within you. So let this truth settle deeply into your spirit. You are not overlooked. You were selected. You were not delayed. You were distinguished. God has never abandoned you in this season. He has been walking closer than ever, shaping you with intention and guarding you with wisdom. What looked like isolation was alignment. What felt like silence was instruction. What seemed like emptiness was actually sacred space where God could work without interference. Do not measure this season by what is missing. Measure it by what is growing. Your discernment is sharper. Your faith is deeper. Your identity is steadier. Your heart is stronger. These are not small things. These are the foundations of a life that will not collapse when love arrives, when responsibility increases, or when pressure intensifies. God has been fortifying you from the inside out. Remember this always: God never withholds without purpose, and He never prepares without intention. When the time is right, when alignment replaces impatience, when wisdom outweighs longing, when obedience stands taller than desire, God will move. And when He does, it will not be confusing, it will not be forced, and it will not cost you your peace. It will feel steady, it will feel clear, it will feel ordered. Because God is a God of order, not chaos. Until that moment, stand firm, walk upright, trust deeply. Let your life testify that fulfillment begins with God and flows outward, never the other way around. You are being shaped into someone who does not need to be chosen to know their worth, who does not need constant affirmation to remain faithful, and who does not fear solitude because the presence of God is enough. Stay obedient in the waiting. Stay anchored in truth. Stay open without becoming desperate. What God is doing in you now is rare, refined, and powerful. And when this season gives way to the next, you will not step forward as someone seeking completion, but as someone whole, grounded in God, led by wisdom, and prepared for whatever He unfolds next. As this message comes to a close, let this truth settle deeply within you. This season of isolation is not an accident, and it is not a mistake. It is a deliberate work of God. What you have experienced as waiting has been shaping you, but you're unhealthy. What you have felt as silence has been instruction. And what appeared to be absence has actually been divine presence. And what about divine presence? Closer than ever, working where no human hands could reach. You were never overlooked. You were never forgotten. You were never forgotten. You were never passed by. You were selected for a path that requires depth, discernment, and strength. God has been forming foundations within you that will not crack under pressure, collapse under emotion, or bend under compromise. He has been teaching you how to stand firm, how to stand firm without leaning on validation, how to remain faithful without immediate reward, and how to trust without visible confirmation. This season has taught you how to be whole before being joined, anchored before being aligned, and grounded before being and trusted. You are love. The love is not meant to rescue you, complete you, or replace God. Love is meant to complement a life already rooted in truth and obedience. God has protected you from connections that would have drained your clarity. And above all else, He delayed your calling or demanded a version of you that could not remain faithful to Him. The waiting has not weakened you. It has refined you. The solitude has not emptied you. It has filled you with wisdom. You are becoming someone who does not chase affection, beg for attention, or settle out of fear. You are becoming someone who chooses from discernment, not desperation, from peace, not pressure, from alignment, not attraction alone. Remembers this. God never withholds without purpose, and He never prepares without intention. Never prepares without intention. When the time comes for connection, it will not steal your voice. It will not dilute your devotion. It will not compete with your calling. It will walk beside what God has already established within you. Until then, your responsibility is not to rush the process, but to honor it. Do not measure this season by what is missing. Measure it by what is growing. Your faith is deeper. Your discernment is sharper. Your identity is steadier. Your heart is stronger. These are eternal gains. These are the marks of someone who has been trained, not neglected. Stay obedient in the waiting. Stay anchored in truth. Stay open without becoming desperate. Trust that God's timing is not late, not slow, and not careless. It is precise. And when God moves, it will be clear, ordered, and peaceful, because what comes from Him never requires you to lose yourself to receive it. You are not being prepared to be chosen. You are being prepared to choose wisely. You are not being shaped for lack, but for overflow. And when this season gives way to the next, you will step forward. Someone seeking completion, but as someone whole, rooted in God, led by wisdom, and ready for what He unfolds next.